Let me ask you something important. When was the last time you felt truly strong in your body? Not just getting by, not just managing, but actually strong. The kind of strength where standing up from a chair feels effortless, where carrying groceries doesn't steal your energy, where your legs feel like they belong to you again. Now, here's the hard truth. Most people over 50 are never told. Muscle loss is not a normal part of aging. It is a nutritional and metabolic problem, and the advice you've been given for decades has quietly failed you. You've been told to sip bone broth. You've been told to eat a little protein. You've been told weakness is just part of getting older. And every year, muscles shrink, balance declines, falls increase, and independence slips away. I want you to forget bone broth for a moment. Not because it's harmful, but because it's not enough. Bone broth does not build muscle. It does not stop sarcopenia. It does not give your body the raw materials it desperately needs to rebuild strength. Muscle is built from complete, dense, bioavailable protein. Muscle is built from real food, not liquid comfort, not powders, not labels that say healthy but don't deliver results. Your body is incredibly intelligent. It wants to be strong. It wants to repair. It wants to rebuild, but it can only work with what you give it. And if you don't give it the right building blocks, it has no choice but to break itself down. This is not about vanity. This is not about bodybuilding. This is about survival. Muscle is your metabolic engine. It protects your bones. It stabilizes your joints. It regulates blood sugar. It supports your immune system. And when muscle disappears, everything else follows. Here's the good news, and this is where hope comes in. Sarcopenia is reversible at any age. In your 50 seconds, 60 seconds, 70 seconds, and even beyond, I've seen it happen. I've worked with patients who were told decline was inevitable, and they proved that story wrong. The solution is not complicated. It's not expensive. It's not found in a supplement aisle. It's found on your plate. One food in particular does what bone broth never can. It builds muscle tissue, stimulates repair, and sends a powerful signal to your body that it's time to grow stronger, not weaker. And once you understand this, everything changes. Sarcopenia, the age-related loss of muscle, is one of the biggest threats to health as we age, yet it's barely discussed in doctors' offices. And that's a tragedy because muscle loss doesn't just affect how you look or move, it affects how long and how well you live. Low muscle mass is linked to higher risk of falls, fractures, insulin resistance, chronic inflammation, and even early death. When muscle declines, bones weaken faster, blood sugar becomes harder to control, fat gain increases, energy disappears, confidence fades, and here's the part most people don't realize. Once muscle is lost, the body becomes more fragile, more dependent, and more vulnerable to illness. This is why so many older adults spiral after a simple fall or short hospital stay. They don't recover, not because they're old, but because they're undernourished. Bone broth has been marketed as a miracle food, but it's mostly collagen and water. Collagen is not a complete protein. It lacks the essential amino acids, especially leucine, that trigger muscle protein synthesis. Your body literally cannot build muscle from it alone. Meanwhile, the body is quietly begging for real nourishment. It needs dense nutrition. It needs signals that say you are safe, you are fed. You can rebuild. When you provide that signal consistently, muscle responds, strength returns, stability improves, energy comes back. And something powerful happens mentally. You stop seeing aging as decline and start seeing it as adaptation. This matters because strength is freedom. Strength means getting up without fear. Strength means staying independent. Strength means living life on your terms, not shrinking your world year after year. The first and most important thing we have to do is clearly identify the real problem, because if you misunderstand the problem, every solution you try will fail, no matter how well-intentioned it is. The problem is not aging. The problem is not weak genes. And the problem is definitely not that your body is giving up on you. The real problem is progressive muscle loss caused by chronic undernutrition of the very nutrients muscle tissue depends on to survive. This condition has a name, sarcopenia, and it is driven primarily by inadequate quality protein intake, not by the passage of time. As we age, our bodies become less sensitive to weak nutritional signals. In younger years, you could eat a modest amount of protein and still maintain muscle. But after 40, and especially after 50, that changes. The muscles become resistant. They require a stronger signal to turn on muscle protein synthesis. If that signal doesn't arrive, the body doesn't pause. It adapts. And adaptation, in this case, means breaking muscle down to conserve energy. This is not a failure of willpower, it's basic physiology. Most people are unknowingly making this worse by following advice that sounds healthy but is metabolically damaging. They replace solid food with liquids, they fear red meat, they rely on soups, broths, cereals, smoothies, and light meals. Bone broth becomes a staple because it feels gentle and safe, but muscle does not recognize comfort. It recognizes amino acids. And bone broth, collagen drinks, and low-protein meals simply do not provide the essential amino acids required to stimulate muscle repair, especially leucine, which acts as the ignition key for muscle growth. Over time, the body enters a silent deficit. Muscle is lost a little each year. Strength declines so gradually that people adapt without noticing. They sit more, they avoid stairs, they stop lifting. Eventually, everyday tasks feel harder, balance feels uncertain, and fatigue becomes normal. At that point, sarcopenia is no longer invisible. It's controlling daily life. The tragedy is that this decline is often labeled as normal aging, so it goes untreated. Doctors focus on cholesterol numbers, blood pressure, and bone density, but muscle, the very tissue that protects bones, stabilizes joints, and regulates blood sugar, is ignored. And when muscle is ignored, the entire system weakens. This problem compounds itself. Less muscle means lower metabolism. Lower metabolism means more fat gain and insulin resistance. Insulin resistance accelerates inflammation. Inflammation further breaks down muscle. It becomes a vicious cycle, all rooted in one fundamental issue. The body is not receiving the right building materials in the right amount. So the problem is not that people aren't trying. The problem is that they've been taught the wrong strategy. They are under-eating protein, choosing incomplete sources, and expecting their bodies to thrive on signals that are far too weak. Once you understand this, everything changes, because sarcopenia is not a life sentence. It is a response, and responses can be changed once we understand that sarcopenia is driven by inadequate nutrition rather than age itself. The next step is to recognize how deeply this problem affects everyday life and long-term health. Muscle loss is not just something you see in the mirror. It quietly reshapes how you move, how you feel, and how safe you are in your own body. And because it happens slowly, many people don't realize what's being taken from them until it's already gone. In daily life, the first thing muscle loss steals is confidence. People begin to move more cautiously. They hesitate before standing up. They use their hands to push off chairs. Stairs feel steeper. Carrying groceries becomes tiring. None of this seems dramatic at first, but these small adaptations are warning signs. When muscles weaken, balance declines, reaction time slows, and the body becomes less stable. This is why falls increase with age, not because people are clumsy, but because their muscles are no longer able to correct movement quickly enough. Fatigue is another major consequence. Muscle is a metabolic tissue. It produces energy and helps regulate blood sugar. When muscle mass declines, the body becomes less efficient. Blood sugar spikes become more common, energy crashes happen more often, and people start to feel tired after activities that once felt easy. This fatigue is often misinterpreted as low motivation or getting older, when in reality, the engine itself is shrinking. Joint pain and stiffness also increase. Muscles act as shock absorbers and stabilizers for the joints. When they weaken, joints take on stress they were never meant to handle alone. Knees ache, hips feel unstable, lower backs become tight and painful. People move less because movement hurts, and moving less accelerates muscle loss even further. It becomes a self-reinforcing cycle. Over the long term, the consequences are even more serious. Loss of muscle is strongly associated with insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, osteoporosis, and cardiovascular disease. Weak muscles mean weaker bones, because bones need muscle tension to stay dense. This is why fractures become so dangerous later in life, not just because bones are brittle, but because there isn't enough muscle to protect them during a fall or to aid recovery afterward. Perhaps the most devastating impact is loss of independence. When muscle mass drops too low, people begin to rely on others for tasks they once did themselves. This loss is not just physical, it's emotional. Independence is tied to dignity. When strength disappears, so does a sense of control over one's own life. And here's the most important point. None of this happens suddenly. It happens quietly, year by year, while people are told everything is normal. But it's not normal, it's preventable. Muscle loss changes the entire trajectory of health and aging, turning what could be strong, capable years into fragile ones. Understanding this impact is crucial, because once you see what's truly at stake, rebuilding muscle stops being optional. it becomes essential. Once the problem is clearly understood and its consequences are impossible to ignore, the solution becomes refreshingly simple. Not easy, but simple. The body does not need complicated formulas, trendy supplements, or extreme routines to rebuild muscle. It needs real food that provides a strong, unmistakable biological signal. And that signal comes from complete natural animal-based protein. Muscle is built from amino acids. There are 9 essential amino acids your body cannot make on its own, and they must come from food. If even one of them is missing or too low, muscle repair slows or stops. This is where most well-meaning dietary advice fails. Many foods contain protein, but very few contain all essential amino acids in the right proportions and in a form the body can easily absorb. Bone broth, collagen powders, and plant-based proteins simply do not meet this requirement on their own. The most effective and natural solution is whole animal foods, especially red meat, eggs, and other complete protein sources. These foods deliver all essential amino acids, including leucine, which acts like a switch that turns muscle protein synthesis on. Without enough leucine, the body cannot get the message to rebuild muscle, no matter how much you exercise. This is why older adults often exercise consistently but see little improvement. They are training without providing the raw materials for repair. Red meat, in particular, is one of the most nutrient-dense foods available. It provides not only complete protein, but also vitamin B12 for nerve and muscle function, iron for oxygen delivery, zinc for tissue repair, and creatine, which directly supports muscle strength and power. These nutrients work together. They are not isolated compounds. They arrive as a package designed by nature to support strength and resilience. Eggs are another powerful option. They are highly bioavailable, easy to digest, and rich in essential amino acids. The yolk contains nutrients that support hormone production and muscle repair. This makes eggs especially valuable for people who struggle with appetite or digestion because they deliver a lot of nutrition in a small, manageable portion. What makes this solution so effective is not just what these foods contain, but what they signal. When you eat a solid, protein-rich meal, your body receives a clear message: resources are abundant, repair is possible, growth is safe, hormones respond accordingly, muscle protein synthesis increases, recovery improves, strength gradually returns. This approach also respects the body's natural design. Humans evolved eating nutrient-dense animal foods. Our digestive systems, enzymes, and muscle metabolism are optimized for them. There is nothing artificial or extreme about this solution. It is a return to biological common sense. The key is simplicity and consistency. One strong, protein-focused meal per day can dramatically change the muscle-building signal your body receives. You don't need perfection. You don't need constant eating. You need quality, density, and regularity. When the body finally receives what it has been missing, it responds, not because of motivation or willpower, but because it is finally able to do what it was always designed to do: rebuild, strengthen, and protect you. Understanding the solution is important, but transformation only happens when that knowledge turns into action. This is where practical, everyday habits matter. Building muscle and stopping sarcopenia does not require a gym membership, complicated meal plans, or drastic lifestyle changes. It starts with simple choices you can make today, choices that send your body a clear, repeated message that strength is a priority. The first practical step is to prioritize protein at the start of the day or at your main meal. Many people begin their mornings with tea, toast, cereal, or fruit, foods that provide calories but almost no muscle building signal. By the time dinner arrives, the body has already spent the day in a deficit. Instead, begin with real nourishment. Eggs, meat, or other solid protein sources early in the day create a strong anabolic signal that carries through the next several hours. This single change alone can significantly improve muscle protein synthesis. Next, focus on eating food you can chew. Chewing is not just mechanical. It stimulates digestion and signals the body that real nourishment is coming. Liquids, smoothies, soups, and broths are easy, but they bypass many of the natural digestive signals that help regulate appetite and muscle repair. Solid food digests more slowly, provides a stronger hormonal response, and delivers nutrients in a way the body recognizes as building material rather than emergency fuel. Portion size matters, but not in the way people fear. Instead of spreading tiny amounts of protein across multiple meals, aim for a sufficient amount in one sitting. Older muscles respond better to a clear, concentrated signal. A proper portion of meat or eggs in one meal is often more effective than small amounts eaten throughout the day. This approach is simpler and easier to maintain long term. Movement should support nutrition, not punish the body. You don't need intense workouts to benefit. Simple resistance, standing up from a chair repeatedly, carrying groceries, climbing stairs, or using light weights tells the body where to send the nutrients you're consuming. Protein without movement is helpful, but protein paired with gentle resistance is transformative. The goal is consistency, not exhaustion. Another practical tip is to stop fearing rest. Muscle is built during recovery, not during effort. Adequate sleep and reduced stress allow hormones like growth hormone and testosterone to do their job. When nutrition, movement, and rest align, the body enters a rebuilding state naturally. Finally, remove the pressure to be perfect. Progress comes from repetition, not extremes. One strong protein-focused meal today is a win. A short walk or a few chair stands are a win. These small actions compound over time. When you apply these steps consistently, muscle growth stops being theoretical. It becomes visible. Strength improves, confidence returns, and the body begins to remember something it never forgot. It was always capable of getting stronger. Stopping muscle loss and rebuilding strength is not about short bursts of effort. It's about creating habits that your body can rely on day after day. Consistency is where real change happens, especially as we age. The body responds best to repeated, predictable signals. When those signals are strong and steady, muscle adapts, repairs, and grows. When they are irregular or weak, the body slips back into conservation mode. One of the most important habits to build is regular protein intake from real food. This doesn't mean constant eating or complicated tracking. It means making a firm decision that protein is non-negotiable. Each day, your body needs a clear message that muscle tissue is worth maintaining. Skipping protein for several days and then catching up later doesn't work. Muscles respond to today's signal, not last week's intentions. Routine matters more than variety. Eating similar protein-rich meals regularly actually makes adherence easier. When you remove daily decision-making, consistency improves. Whether it's eggs in the morning or a solid meat-based meal later in the day, the goal is to create a pattern your body recognizes. Over time, this pattern builds trust between you and your physiology. Your body learns that resources will arrive, so it stops breaking itself down. Movement habits should be equally predictable. You don't need long workouts. You need frequent reminders that muscle is required. Light resistance done consistently is more powerful than intense sessions done sporadically. Standing more often, carrying objects, using your muscles intentionally throughout the day, these small actions reinforce the message sent by your nutrition. Muscle grows where it is used. Consistency also protects motivation. When habits are simple and repeatable, they require less mental energy. You're no longer relying on willpower. Strength becomes part of your routine, not a project you constantly start and stop. This is crucial because motivation naturally fluctuates, but habits carry you through low energy days. Another key habit is patience. Muscle rebuilding takes time, especially after years of loss. Early progress may show up as better balance, improved energy, or less joint discomfort before visible muscle appears. Trusting the process prevents discouragement and keeps you moving forward. Sleep and recovery must also be consistent. Irregular sleep disrupts hormones that regulate muscle repair and appetite. Going to bed and waking up at similar times helps stabilize these systems. Recovery is not laziness, it's a biological requirement for growth. Most importantly, consistency changes identity. When you repeatedly nourish your body and move with intention, you stop seeing yourself as someone trying to get healthier and start seeing yourself as someone who values strength. That shift is powerful. Lasting results don't come from dramatic actions, they come from reliable ones. Feed your muscles regularly, use them daily, rest them properly. Do this consistently and the body will respond because it always does when the signals are clear and repeated. The final and perhaps most powerful piece of this entire message is understanding what all of this truly means for you, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. This is where the motivation becomes personal, because rebuilding muscle and stopping sarcopenia is not simply about stronger legs or better balance. It's about reclaiming control over your future and rewriting the story you've been told about aging. For many people, the most damaging belief is that decline is unavoidable. Once that belief settles in, effort feels pointless. Why try if weakness is guaranteed? But the science and real-world experience tell a very different story. The body is adaptive at every age. It responds to signals, not birthdays. When you give it the right signals, adequate protein, consistent movement, and proper recovery, it responds with strength. That truth alone should change how you see yourself. Key motivational takeaway is this: your body is not failing you. It is responding exactly as it should to the inputs it has been given, and that means the power to change the outcome is still in your hands. This removes guilt and replaces it with responsibility, the healthy kind, not blame, but opportunity. Every protein-rich meal is a vote for strength. Every time you stand up with intention, carry something heavy, or choose to move rather than sit, you are reinforcing that vote. These actions may feel small in the moment, but biologically, they are loud. They tell your muscles that they are needed, and what the body needs, it keeps. There will be days when progress feels slow. That's normal. Muscle recovery and growth are gradual processes, especially after years of loss, but the absence of immediate results does not mean the process isn't working. Beneath the surface, metabolic pathways are shifting, hormones are recalibrating, and muscle fibers are repairing. Trusting this unseen progress is part of the journey. This approach also restores dignity. Strength allows you to engage with life fully, to travel, to play with grandchildren, to move confidently in the world without fear of falling or fatigue. These are not luxuries. They are fundamental human needs, and they are supported by muscle. The most important mindset shift is this: you are not trying to turn back the clock. You are building forward. You are adapting to this stage of life with intelligence and intention. That is strength in its truest form. So let this be the takeaway you carry with you. Aging does not require surrender. Weakness is not a requirement. With the right nourishment and consistent habits, your body will meet you where you are and move forward with you. Start now, stay consistent, and remind yourself daily, strength is still available to you, and it's built one deliberate choice at a time. Forget the myth that weakness is inevitable. Forget the idea that sipping nutrients can replace real nourishment. Choose food that tells your body to build, not break. Start today, eat for strength, move with purpose, and remind yourself every single day you are not done yet.